How's this for a closing message? Oprah should be ashamed of herself, and Fox News, well, they're not as pro-Trump as they should be.
And I think, frankly, she should be ashamed of herself. And you know who else should be ashamed? Fox. Because I've seen Oprah on Fox about 50 times making the same statement. And I think it's a disgrace what Fox does, because everyone thinks Fox is so pro-Trump. They're not pro-Trump at all. They've put Oprah on all morning long. That's all I see is Oprah. And, I do Oprah very well. She's been at Mar-a-Lago many times. Roger King had his funeral. That's the head of King World, which was Oprah's mentor. And Oprah chose the location. She said, Mar-a-Lago is the most beautiful place. Would it be possible to have Roger's funeral at Mar-a-Lago in the ballroom? We did it. The only time I've ever had a funeral there. And I think Oprah should be ashamed of herself to say that. She should be ashamed. She knows me. She wanted to run with me as the vice president. She was going to be the vice president. She wrote me a letter. It's in the book. And now she goes and makes statements like that. She's a divider. And Barack Hussein Obama is a divider, too.
It's election day, or as I like to call it, why is this not a national holiday, but we allow a day off to buy mattresses to honor the person people take time off to elect day. And as Kamala Harris knocked on doors and visited phone bank.
I'm looking at you and you're looking at me? Oh, because there's a live camera somewhere. Which camera is, this is, okay, I'm waving it. This is waving it.
Is this Teresa? Yes, is this Teresa?
Okay. Hi.
Trump held an impromptu presser in Florida alongside whoever the hell this is. Because if you think that's Melania, I've got a $60 God Bless America Bible I can sell you.
Who are concerned that you didn't concede the election in 2020 when you lost. They're concerned that if you lost this election, you wouldn't concede again. What do you say to those people?
I think they're crazy. If I lose an election, if it's a fair election, I'd be the first one to acknowledge it. And I think so far, I think it's been fair. I think there's been a lot of court cases. Both sides are lawyered up. Thousands of lawyers are involved, thousands, can you imagine? And part of that is because we have too complicated a process. If we had a piece of paper, watermarked, you know that paper is more sophisticated now than computers. It's watermarked paper.
But amidst his low-energy rambling, Trump gave us an insight into where his head's at the moment. He's tired, frustrated, and spiraling, opting to tell a reporter to simply stop talking about abortion issues.
Here we're doing great.
He voted against the abortion measure in supporting Florida 6 weeks.
We did a great job in that we brought it back to the states, as you know, to call a winner. They should. And they should call a winner, yes. Just stop talking about that. Go ahead.
Before going on a rant, attacking his once prized megaphone, Fox News, for not being pro-Trump enough. I mean, if this doesn't tell you that he's worried, nothing will.
Actually, I'm disappointed. I think Oprah's become a major divider in our country. And I think, frankly, she should be ashamed of herself. And you know who else should be ashamed? Fox. Because I've seen Oprah on Fox about 50 times making the same statement. And I think it's a disgrace what Fox does, because everyone thinks Fox is so pro-Trump. They're not pro-Trump at all. They've put Oprah on all morning long. That's all I see is Oprah.
When the former president is railing against the people who often go to bat for him on his most insane takes, like, making excuses for him wishing the people he appointed be more like German generals under Hitler, then you know that he's spiraling.
But the bottom line is, if you read H.R. McMaster's book, who is critical of President Trump in some of it and not in others, he talks about how Madison Kelly didn't like the president. And they didn't think he deserved the job, or they didn't think he was worthy of the job. And they went out of his way to make sure a lot of the things they asked him to do that they didn't like never got done. McMaster would be frustrated because he couldn't get their attention. And he would say, it's not your job to rein in the president. It's your job to do what the president wants. And then you factor in the fact that he runs his own company, coming from the business world, the first one we've ever had. It's not even a public company. And then he obviously has frustration. And I could absolutely see him go, now, you know what? It would be great to have German generals that actually do what we asked them to do, knowing that's a third, maybe not fully being cognizant of the third rail of German generals who are Nazis and whatever.
So will any of these amount to the so-called October surprises that can sometimes impact elections just 12 days out. Let's bring in Howie Kurtz, host of Media Buzz. Howie, great to have you here. You know, there's obviously a lot of stuff being thrown at the wall here. And the question is, do you think, given the state of this race, that any of this sticks or that it changes anyone's opinions this late in the game?
Well, first of all, I think that John Kelly is a highly respected four-star who lost a son in Afghanistan, and I don't believe that he is making things up, and nobody can really know what the private conversations may have been. However, at the same time, Trump may have just been letting off steam about the loyalty he wanted from his generals compared to what he thought about Hitler's generals. And I think that it's obviously not something that was made for public consumption. I think if these things were said, it was not an effort to say anything publicly about that. But his accusations are not going to move 10 votes.
And it's not the first time either. He has repeatedly ridiculed the cable news giant in the weeks leading up to Election Day, complaining about Democratic campaign ads being allowed to air on network. And he said during an appearance on the channel earlier this month that he would appeal directly to Rupert Murdoch over the network's coverage of him. Could it be that Meidas' favorite Jessica Tarlov has got under that orange coat and ruffled the feathers?
I don't want to use his name in those contexts, but to say that this is something that they are inventing versus that they're getting it from the people who worked for him is absolutely not fair. And I would just say, if you are upset that you're being called an authoritarian, go and take a look at his Truth Social post from right before the show started. This cease and desist letter that he has about prosecuting people he suspects of cheating. And this extends to lawyers, political operatives, donors, illegal voters.
Oh, lawfare.
So why didn't they indict Hillary Clinton when he had the goods on her?
Because there was nothing on her.
Are you kidding?
I am not kidding.
Oh, she didn't have any classified documents?
Are you kidding?
She only used her laptop and her phone. Where did she keep the classified documents in the emails?
It was a Republican,
okay, and
by the way.
already he's talking about Hunter Biden. Donald Trump is trying to make sure. Donald Trump is trying to make sure that he heals the country. So don't make it sound like
yeah.
So it's much of this.
Or could it be that he feels his election chances are dwindling and he's struggling to keep a stronghold on even his most trusted allies? I mean, the ones not telling everyone of his affliction for German generals.
And John Carl and John, let's go back to those comments from retired General John Kelly. One of the things you've reported in your books, I reported in my book as well. We've seen it again today. Some of the most damning critiques of Donald Trump's character and competence come from those who serve in these top national security positions.
I'll go further than that, George. The most damning critiques of Donald Trump and the most dire warnings about what it would mean if he came back into the White House came from people who served him closest in his administration in the most sensitive and important positions. Let me just go through a few of them. I've written them down so that I don't leave any out, but I'm going to leave some out because there are a lot. Obviously, there's his former vice president. There's Rex Tillerson, who was his Secretary of State. Bill Barr, who was Attorney General. John Kelly, Mark Milley, Mark Esper, who was his defense secretary. Jim Mattis, who was his earlier defense secretary. Dan Coates, who was in charge of the national intelligence. All of these people have come out to issue dire warnings about Donald Trump. And George, I have to say, it's not just the people that have come out publicly. A lot of others, and you can see them in that they are not endorsing Trump, but they're not speaking publicly. They're worried about the feedback. Let me just read you something that an anonymous, very top official who spent every day time with Donald Trump, served more than a year's administration, told me about Donald Trump. Trump lacks any shred of human decency, humility, or caring. He is a traitor and a malignancy in our nation and represents a clear and present danger to our democracy and rule of law. Again, that is somebody who, just like John Kelly, who was with Trump every day for more than a year in the White House.
Traitor. Let's put that graphic back up there because I want to make a point here. When you see that graphic of all the people who surrounded Donald Trump, these are the people that were in the Situation Room during the times of crisis. If Donald Trump is election again, none of those people will be there.
Well, I've spoken to Trump many times about some of these people that have crossed him, and I asked him what his next administration would be like. What he's told me is he didn't know anybody. He had to rely on advice to hire people last time. Now he knows people. He will put people in who are loyal to him. He will put people in that will carry out his orders.
The guardrails will be gone.
And of course, he followed up this rant on camera with an unhinged take on Truth Social, claiming that cheating has already begun in Philly and that law enforcement are on the way, despite officials in Philly claiming that they've not heard anything about this. And Trump, again, is simply lying.
I want people to be reassured
that when they get up tomorrow to go vote, if they have not voted already, that everybody in the city is working and has been working for months to make sure that there will be nothing tough about that experience and nothing to fear in that experience. But I also want to be clear, anybody who thinks it's time to play militia, F around and find out. Anybody who thinks it's time to insult, to deride, to mistreat, to threaten people, F around and find out. We do have the cuffs, we do have the jail cells, we do have the Philly juries, and we have the state prisons. So if you're going to try to turn an election into some form of coercion, if you're going to try to bully people, bully votes or voters, you're going to try to erase votes, you're going to try any of that nonsense, we're not playing. F around and find out.
Which anyone not cocooned off from reality could have predicted. Hell, I remember last time around, Bernie Sanders gave a play-by-play in the run-up to the election of what Trump would do. And of course, he did it step by step.
Here is my worry. What polls show and what studies have shown is that for whatever reason, Democrats are more likely to use mail-in ballots. Republicans are more likely to walk into polling booths on election day. It is likely that the first votes that will be counted will be those people who came in on election day, which will be Republican. And here is the fear, and I hope everybody hears that. It could well be, and I don't know what's going to happen, nobody does, but it could well be that at 10 o'clock on election night, Trump is winning in Michigan, he's winning in Pennsylvania, he's winning in Wisconsin, and he gets on the television, he says, "Thank you, Americans, for re-electing me. It's all over. Have a good day." But then the next day and the day following, all of those mail-in ballots start getting counted, and it turns out that Biden has won those states. At which point Trump says, "See, I told you the whole thing was fraudulent. I told you those mail-in ballots were crooked, and we're not going to leave office."
And we were getting ready for a big celebration. We were winning everything, and all of a sudden it was just called off. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country.
And he's going back to the same old tired playbook, which of course is telling of a serial loser.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.